Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Coram, Court.
Excused.
Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Beals, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones,
Excused.
Kagan, Kafalis, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez-Humanic, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused, do we have a quorum? Senator Priola, lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal, Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Friday, February the 16th, 2018 be dispensed with and that the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
February 16, 2018, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology. After consideration of merits, committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 65 be postponed indefinitely.
Senate Services.
Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 10, 3379, 106, 107, 129, 138, 154. Correctly re-revised, House Bill 1075, 1159, 1160, 1161, 1162, 1163, 1164, 1165, 1166, 1167, 1168, 1169, 1170, 1173. Correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 1934 and 41, Senate Joint Memorial 3.
Message from the House.
The House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1011 as printed in the House Journal February 16, 2018.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment as submitted House Bill 1130.
General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
Motion before the body is for the Senate to resolve itself from the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The aye has it, and the Senate will resolve itself from the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to the bill on the general order, second reading of bill, consent calendar.
Senate Bill 149 by Senator Gardner and Representatives Gray and Hare concerning records of the Board of Directors of the Denver Health and Hospital Authority.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the one bill on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, Senate Bill 149.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the bill on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill on the consent calendar is adopted. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the body to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee had a bill under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of whole begs leave to report as item consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof and makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 149 passed the second read order and gross and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 149 passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, there have been requests to lay over several bills on the general order, second reading of bills calendar and lay them over until tomorrow. So before the chair moves this into general order, second reading of bills, I'm going to offer a motion to move all of those bills off of today's calendar and lay them over till tomorrow. Mr. President, I move the Senate lay over Senate Bills 143. Excuse me, thank you. Senate Bill 43, Senate Bill 22, Senate Bill 7, House Bill 1171, and Senate Bill 125 until Wednesday, February 21st.
Motion is to lay over Senate Bills 43, 22, 7, House Bill 1171, Senate Bill 125 till tomorrow, February 21st. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those will lay over till tomorrow. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills calendar.
Motion for the body is for the Senate to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The aye has it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 128?
Senate Bill 128 by Senator Gardner and Representative Liston concerning a restriction on a state agency's authority to increase a fee.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 128, and there is no committee report.
To the bill, Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Members, this bill is concerning the executive branch ability to raise fees without legislative review. And what the bill does is set up a process to allow and permit legislative review of executive branch fee increases. It's a great bill with respect to legislative oversight and power of the executive agencies, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 128. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 128 passes. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 144?
Senate Bill 144 by Senator Kerr and Representative Willett concerning the regulation of bicycles approaching intersections.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 144 and ask for your aye vote. Senate Bill 144 is a bill that is definitely different than the one that some of you saw last year dealing with bicycles at intersections. This is a very permissive bill. All it does is it says that local governments, municipalities, and counties that want to adopt these ordinances, which some already have, but if they do, that they just meet these general parameters as set forth in the bill. Now, to make sure that we don't have this great patchwork of different ordinances throughout the state, we based the standards in this bill on the local communities that have already adopted these ordinances, Breckenridge, Summit County, Aspen. I do believe that there are some amendments going to be offered, which I believe will improve the bill and help address any concerns folks might have. With that, I yield the floor.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that beautiful segue from the good senator from Jeffco, I move L001.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
Amendment L001, Senate Bill 144 by Senator Kerr. Amend printed bill page 2, strike lines 8 and 9, read letters succeeding paragraphs accordingly. Page 2, strike line 11, and substitute both the state and local levels with municipal streets and county roads under local jurisdiction and the state highways under state control. Page 2, line 14, strike has and substitute may have.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is the amendment that Senator from Jeffco referred to. It cleans up the language and gets local governments on board. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my discussions with CML over the weekend is that if this amendment is adopted, that they are no longer in neutral on the bill, but are in support of the bill. So this amendment I do see as a friendly amendment, and I ask for its adoption.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L001? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L001. All in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment L001 is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 144 by Senator Gardner. Amend printed bill
Senator
page.
Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002.
To the amendment, Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Members, this is an amendment requested by the State Patrol. As you know, the bill allows for an ordinance by a municipality or a county changing the requirements with respect to intersection speed limits. What this amendment would do is say that the bill or any ordinance or resolution adopted pursuant to the bill will not apply to any portion of the state highway system. This is important with respect to the control of our state highways, and for that reason, it should not be something that the local municipality or county controls, because we're talking about, in this case, state highway system intersections. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L002? Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with this amendment, I believe that this amendment then addresses the concerns that the State Patrol brought up in committee and to many folks outside in the lobby. So I would be in favor of this amendment with bringing the neutrality of the State Patrol to the bill.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was curious in a city like, say, Denver or Colorado Springs, if a road is also a state highway that comes to an intersection that is a city street, would that mean that the law would not be applicable at that intersection?
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, and I appreciate the question from the senator from El Paso County, Colorado Springs. Indeed, the language of the amendment is that that ordinance or resolution shall not apply to any portion of the state highway system as defined in Section 43-101. So if you have a state highway as part of that intersection, this would apply.
Minority Leader Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to that, I guess I'm still concerned because there's a great deal of my area, my district, which covers Federal Boulevard. So Federal starts way south and goes very north. So I cross Federal and 23rd. I see a lot of bicyclists crossing there, Federal and 20th, Federal and so forth. And so I think this is a little bit concerning for me in that that part of the state highway system operates, if you will, a little bit more like a city operation. But if this means that someone crossing, if I'm riding my bicycle and I'm leaving my home at 21st and Hooker and I'm going to drive east or ride east 2 blocks cross Federal, if everything is clear, I cannot cross. So this affects some of my area in a negative way.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L002? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment L002 is adopted. Will the clerk, there is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, Senate Bill 144 by Senator Cook and been
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What this amendment does, it puts the responsibility on the bicyclist if it holds the driver of the vehicle immune from civil and criminal prosecution. If the bicycle enters the intersection legally, that now we're giving them the authority to do, and a car enters the intersection legally because they have the green light, this holds the driver immune from civil and criminal liability.
Senator Cook, we have not yet moved Amendment L003. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L003 and repeat just what I said.
Great. Is there any further discussion? Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I think we've got an important discussion to be had about what local control looks like, what local communities making decisions for themselves look like. Obviously, that's a big topic. It's a big theme that we do here. This amendment, colleagues, I'm concerned, actually makes a radical change in bringing insurance and civil law into a bill that actually has nothing to do with that. We already have fairly well-established laws, and the bill very clearly addresses right-of-way. This doesn't change liability. This doesn't change right-of-way. This doesn't change and give you a right to pull out in front of someone. As someone who's biked a fair amount and been hit a fair amount on a bike, I recognize that responsibility goes both ways. In each case, I think we already have the tools in place, fairly robust tools in place to determine liability. And at the colleagues, my candid assumption, while I respect what the sponsor of the amendment is trying to do here, this totally changes the nature of the bill. This totally upends the goal of the bill, which is giving local communities control over this, really in an attempt, I think, to make the bill unpalatable to both sides.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would urge the body to read the amendment. There's a very concerning point right here that says the bicyclist is strictly liable even if in compliance with the municipal ordinance or county resolution adopted pursuant to, et cetera. I think that really raises all kind of alarms and red flags and would urge opposition to this amendment.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, this amendment and my colleague from El Paso County from my side of the aisle, I would say to him, this doesn't upend the intent of the bill. It will still be legal to enter that intersection, but it resolves what is an inevitable liability issue. When you enter that intersection, not having complied with the stop in the way that other occupants of the roadway are required to do, who's going to be liable for that? And I recognize for those of you who are attorneys, the handful of us or less here, maybe I'm mixing somewhat related notions of liability, but what this is really doing is saying if you enter the intersection by bicyclists, you're perfectly within the law to do so. You assume the risk for doing so. You are not going to be able to do so, and an unsuspecting driver who just didn't get seen gets an assessment of comparative negligence or something for not being on the lookout just well enough because that driver had a green light. This answers a question. It doesn't upend the bill, but it answers a civil liability question that is inevitable. And it strikes the right balance. No bicyclist is required to avail themselves of an ordinance or resolution of the municipality. They're not required to cross. They can wait. And if they choose not to wait, they enter the intersection, they will have assumed the risk altogether. And that seems to be a fair trade for what they are doing. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, my colleague from Colorado Springs made some good points, but let me tell you what often comes across in some of these intersections. The last time I was hit on a bicycle, I was pulled up on the right-hand lane, in the bike lane, and someone was looking to make a right-hand turn. This person making a right-hand turn was checking over their left shoulder the entire time, not paying any attention to who else was around them, not paying any attention to the car that was actually right behind me in the same turn off to make a right-hand turn as well. They were trying to make a turn from the wrong lane. And so seeing this and recognizing she wasn't paying attention, I pulled out and tried to get out in front of her so as to miss the fact that she was going to turn right into me. This bill would say, therefore, I was taking advantage of this, not to get out of her way, but to run a light or something like that, and would say, I am strictly liable for everything that happened. Colleagues, I think there's an important discussion to be had here, but just to automatically say the bicyclist is strictly liable in every single circumstance when whether it's trying to protect themselves, whether it's trying to stay out of the way of someone not paying attention, I think it's an important debate. It's not one to be run last minute without talking to those who support the bill.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to disagree with my colleague from El Paso County when I read this amendment. It basically states that if in the case that he referred to, there would be a clear intent that that person was not following traffic laws as they were. He has to yield on a right-hand turn, and if he's crossing over a line of traffic, he has to take a look at that. So that would not apply to this situation. What it applies to is a situation where there is a green light, both people are proceeding, and that person still has to yield to traffic, to someone in the other lane. You mentioned, the individual mentioned that they were making a turn from the wrong lane. In that case, there's a clear violation, and that person wouldn't be let off the hook for that clear violation. So that in that case, the bicyclist would be able to actually go to civil court, and actually that person should get a ticket. So I fully support Amendment L003. And I think one of the most important things we have to take a look at is we have to understand that everybody that is riding a bicycle is not 18 or 21 years old. Many people that ride bicycles are young people. And so I think we have to be very, very clear in what we're teaching young people about proper etiquette and proper road safety on bicycles. This helps clarify that and make sure that they understand that there is a rule of law. And last but not least, I'd just like to mention that we talk about jurisdictions. When I go to work every day, or anywhere I go across probably 15 or 20 different jurisdictions. So when we talk about confusion, I believe this helps clarify exactly the intent of the law, I believe, as the sponsors intended. So I fully support and ask for your aye vote on 003.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, as a person who's a cyclist, and if you recall, I was hit by a bicycle this past summer. And so I'm going to rise in opposition right now into 003, because I think there needs to be a greater conversation about removing strict liability. I think we need to talk about it because there's so many different scenarios that can take place. And I agree with the comments that the senator from Colorado Springs had shared with us on, drivers making a turn and looking at the oncoming traffic, but not to the cyclist who may be on the other side of the street. And I think that's due care when you're a motorist that, your mother taught you to look both ways and across the street. So I would ask for a no vote until we've had a further conversation on this particular amendment.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the author of this amendment what happens when a cyclist, regardless of whether they're following the local ordinance or not, is in the middle of an intersection and then gets struck and killed by a drunk driver. And in this scenario, I'd like to remind folks that 9 times out of 10, when there is an accident between a car and a cyclist, especially with any speed involved at all, the cyclist is usually not around to testify or to give any information about what color a light was, whether there is a stop light or stop sign. So I'm curious to know that in the case where a cyclist is in an intersection, is struck by a drunk driver, and then the only person around to testify is that drunk driver. What happens in that case?
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this is a red herring because DUI is still illegal. And if a drunk driver hits a bicyclist, he's going to be charged with DUI and thrown into jail. That's no different than if he hits another car and kills somebody else in the car. There's only one person there there's nobody there other than the drunk driver to testify. So the driver of the car that's drunk will still be charged and arrested.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I'm wondering is, does the drunk driver get charged with aggravated manslaughter because they killed a person? And regardless of whether or not the light was red, whether or not there's a stop sign, there is an intersection, a cyclist is killed in the middle of that intersection, and according to this amendment, any cyclist in any intersection has absolute responsibility and liability for anything that happens in that intersection. So again, I ask, what is that driver, that drunk driver, charged with when they have just killed somebody who happens to be on a bicycle in an intersection? Do they get charged with aggravated manslaughter? Do they get charged with homicide? What is the charge? I understand that the drunk driver will still get charged with drunk driving, but what will they get charged with if they kill a cyclist in any intersection if this amendment passes? I'd love to hear that response from the author of this amendment.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you. I'd like to point out that it's worse, actually, than has been adverted. Drunk driver kills cyclist who carefully and in compliance with the law does the rolling move through the stop sign. The drunk driver appears in an unpredictable way, and both people are injured. The drunk driver not only is not liable for the injuries to the cyclist, but the cyclist has to pay the drunk driver's hospital bills, even though the drunk driver was totally at fault. So here you have the weird situation where the drunk is indemnified through strict liability principles for his or her hospital bills and injuries by the totally innocent, legally compliant, careful cyclist. That cannot be right. And that's why I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to ask the sponsor of the amendment why this is necessary. This amendment is necessary when in the bill on page 3, line 17, it says a person riding a bicycle or electrical assisted bicycle and approaching an intersection of a roadway with an illuminated red traffic control signal shall stop before entering the intersection and shall yield to all other traffic and pedestrians. So therefore, given exactly the text of the bill, the amendment is unnecessary, so I would urge you to vote no.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L003? Division has been requested. Will all those in the chamber not entitled to vote please be seated? The motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment L003.
It's just stupid. Like, if you want to actually do it, like, you could do this the right way.
I'm not too worried about it.
That's fair.
Again, members, motion for the body is the adoption of Amendment L003. All in favor, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Amendment L003 is lost. To the bill, Senator Kerr. Senator Hill.
Another amendment?
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L004?
Amendment L004, Senate Bill 144 by Senator
Senator
Baumgartner.
Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment, members, there's been a lot of discussion about the safety of the bicyclist, the safety of the person in the vehicle, what could happen if a person on a bicycle is hit, what could happen to the person that hits the individual. So Mr. Chair, I move L004. The ordinance must include requirement that each intersection be equipped with an electronic warning signal to alert the bicyclist of traffic approaching the intersection.
Senator Hill.
Colleagues, if you like unfunded mandates to local municipalities, please support this amendment. Otherwise, recognize it for what it is.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What he said, I also urge a no.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L004? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004. A division has been requested. Will all those in the chamber not entitled to vote please be seated? All those in favor of Amendment L004, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Amendment L004 is lost. Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I actually think we've had a good discussion on some of this. The real question, the question about this bill is not whether or not you like bikes blowing through intersections. I understand downtown Denver here, the frustration with how people approach intersections and bikes. If you dislike that, you're in luck. It's already against the law. If you dislike the danger that many bikes represent when they break the law, you're in luck. It already should be enforceable. And so the question for some of us is, why aren't those laws being enforced? But that has nothing to do with this bill. This bill has to do with the fact of whether or not local municipalities are able to decide within a framework to allow bikes more easy access through their communities. what they might argue is safer access through their communities. Whether a mountain town decides they want to have a bicycle weekend, or let's put mountain bikes on chairlifts and take them to the top and bike on down the trails and maybe stop through town and grab a craft brew on the way back to your hotel. That should be up to our local communities, and it already is. It's already up to, I think, 3 communities have already said, we want to do this. We want to recognize and make this an easier, quieter, more tourist-friendly, whatever they want to call it. The question for us as statewide legislators are we going to not only allow it, but say if we do allow it, when we allow it, as we already do, will we set a basic standard of laws so that enforcement is easy from community to community to community that chooses to do this? That's the issue in this bill. If this bill passes, if the governor were to sign it tomorrow and it went into effect a few days after that, it would not authorize a single other person in Colorado to ride a bike through a stop sign. If this bill were to go into effect tomorrow, it would not authorize a single other bicycle to go through a red light in Colorado. That is already up to our local municipalities. That is already up to them. That's this Colorado essence of local control. All this bill does is it says very clearly we are going to have an easily enforceable statewide set of rules for the communities that choose to do that. And in my mind, if a community wants to say, if Buena Vista or Salida or Breckenridge or Steamboat Springs decides they want to adopt these set of rules that better fits their community's focus and approach to tourism, to bikes, whatever, friends, we should allow them to do that. Colleagues, we should permit them to do it, and we do permit them to do it. This is a safety measure to say, hey, we're going to standardize those rules for any community that chooses to do that. So with that, colleagues, I say it's a very sensible approach. It doesn't drive a fiscal note. It doesn't change liability. All those are already in place. It just says, let's standardize a little bit so enforcement is easier. Ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 144? Seeing none, the motion for a division has been requested. Will all those in the chamber not entitled to vote please be seated? Motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 144. Will all those in favor please stand? All those in favor, please stand. Please stand and stay standing. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 144 passes. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 3?
Senate Bill 3 by Senator Scott and Representatives Hanson and Becker J. concerning the Colorado Energy Office.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until Wednesday, February 21st.
Motion for the body is to lay over the remainder of the calendar on the general order second reading of bills. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the remainder of the bills on the general order second reading of bills will lay over.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee's met, had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole basically reports that on consideration of the following attached bills being the second read thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 128, Senate Bill 144 is amended, passed the second read, order and gross place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 3, Senate Bill 45, Senate Bill 66, Senate Bill 165, Senate Bill 136, Senate Bill 130, Senate Bill 160, Senate Bill 151, Senate Bill 99, Senate Bill 26, Senate Bill 156 laid over until 2/21/18, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 128, Senate Bill 144 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered and gross and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 3, 45, 66, 165, 136, 130, 160, 151, 99, 26, and 156 laid over until 2/21/18, retaining their place on the calendar. Committee reports.
February 15, 2018. Mr. President, the Committee on Education had on consideration hearing with the following appointments and recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm members of the Board of Trustees for Adams State University for terms expiring December 31st, 2021. Donna Lee Griego of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as representative of Alamosa County as a Democrat appointed. Kathleen J. Rogers of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as a representative of Alamosa County as an unaffiliated, reappointed. Randy Wright of Alamosa, Colorado, to serve as a Republican, reappointed. February 15, 2018, Mr. President, the Committee on Education has had on consideration had a hearing on the following appointments or recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm members of the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado for terms expiring December 31st, 2018. Richard L. Monfort of Greeley, Colorado, Republican, reappointed for terms expiring December 31st, 2021. Christine M. Scanlon of Denver, Colorado, a Democrat, reappointed.
Consideration of governor's appointments.
Members of the State Board of Parole for terms expiring July 1st, 2020, Denise Catherine Balazic of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as a parole probation representative, reappointed. Brandon W. Matthews, DM of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a citizen representative, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the consideration of governor's appointments, including members of the State Board of Parole.
Question before us is the adoption or the appointments of the members of the State Board of Parole. Any discussion? Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Denise Catherine Balasic of Aurora, Colorado, is to serve as a parole or probation representative, is reappointed. Brandon W. Matthews, DM of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a citizen representative, reappointed. Announcements. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it brings me great honor today to welcome a group of elected officials from the Ukraine. Let me tell you just a little bit about them while they're standing. This is a group from the International Visitor Leadership Program, and that they are in the United States. They have been in Washington, D.C., in Louisville, Kentucky, in Florida, and now here in Colorado. And we are thrilled to have them here with us. They'll be leaving Colorado and going up to Minneapolis tomorrow. But they are elected officials from the city, the county, and the state and national. And it was so interesting to meet with them this morning to talk about that they needed to pass a law to get quotas for women and minorities to be elected in the Ukraine. They are here to explore the decentralized nature of the United States government. They were in Washington. I asked them if they saw any action, and they said they were discussing the budget, so they were very busy. So that's hopeful to know that there was some activity going on in Washington. We are thrilled to have them with us today. I would ask you to please give them a warm Colorado welcome, and please join me in saying hello. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Fields. And Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, it's an honor to have some guests here with us today in the Senate. The Black Democratic Legislative Caucus is recognizing the Greater Metro Denver Ministerial Alliance. The Ministerial Alliance has been around for over 70 years, helping to fight for inequalities and injustice, those who have suffered discrimination, and helping those in public service. And so I would like for you to join me in welcoming the Greater Metro Denver Ministerial Alliance, President Pastor Terrence Hughes, and the Vice President, Pastor Jerry Dimmer, and all of the other Ministerial Alliance members who have joined us today. So thank you and welcome, and thank you for your work.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I also would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to a legacy in our community. He's no longer with us, but his legacy continues, and that is the legacy and the vision of Daddy Bruce Randolph. If you've been around Denver, you probably know Daddy Bruce, because Daddy Bruce has been an icon in our community as it relates to feeding the hungry. So I'm going to read this tribute to you all so you can get a sense of his history and his background. Bruce Randolph was born on February the 15th, 1900 in Arkansas, where his family lived on a small farm. He picked cotton for his stepfather before leaving home at the age of 15. He married in 1924 and had 2 sons. He moved to Denver, where he shined shoes and then became a janitor. At the age of 63, and with the help of his sons, Daddy Bruce opened up an eatery, and that eatery was called Daddy Bruce Barbecue. For many years, Daddy Bruce donated his own time, his own money, to feed hundreds and thousands of homeless people on Thanksgiving Day in the community. Daddy Bruce was a man of deep Christian faith. He also gave back by providing clothes and food throughout the year. Daddy Bruce passed away in 1994 at the age of 94 years old. Daddy Bruce Randolph kept his father's legacy, Jr., kept his father's legacy alive by opening Daddy Bruce Barbecue Jr. in Boulder, where it closed in 2012. Reverend Ronald Wooding, who is here today, has worked tirelessly on a documentary in his name. The name of that documentary is Keep a Light in Your Window, about the legacy of Bruce Randolph and his sons. Bruce Randolph Sr. was a rare individual whose passion and persistence was positive influence on Colorado. And Bruce Randolph Jr. continues to be a beloved figure in this community. We here, under the Colorado State Chambers, Colorado House, no, this says House, but it really is the State Senate, are grateful for Randolph's family and the many contributions that he has made to this community. This was requested in the House by Paul Rosenthal, but then it's also requested on behalf of Senator Williams and Senator Fields on this day, signed by the State Capitol President and also the House of Representatives. Thank you, members. Let's please give them a warm applause. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have another announcement to make. I have a very dear friend that's here all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Her name is Lucy Macbeth. Would you please stand, please? She holds a dual role as the national spokesperson for Everytown for Gun Safety and Moms in Man Action for Gun Sense in America. She's also one of the faith and outreach leaders nationally. Her work is very extensive. What I enjoy most about my friend Lucy, is that we have a similar professional path. She has 30 years with Delta Airline, didn't know that, and I have 30 years with United Airlines. And so, unfortunately, she lost her son due to tragedy. In 2012, her son was shot and killed at a gas station in Jacksonville, Florida that year, and they were at a gas station. And a drive-by came by, someone came by and said, "I don't like the music that you're playing. It's too loud." And she lost her son in that encounter. Ever since losing her son, she's been a champion and has spent her commitment to the community to keep our community safe. So please welcome Miss Lucy McBath. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, members. Please keep the rules in mind as we do the introductions. Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I have two announcements that I'd like to share. One is that a number of you who are hosting gifted and talented students on Thursday, there is a letter on your desk dated February 19th from the Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented, and it provides you the details of that day and the student that will be shadowing you. So I encourage you to please take a look at that letter. It has good information. Secondly, if I may take a moment, today is to share these words. Today is Fort Collins Day at the Capitol, and while we have the mayor of Fort Collins, the mayor pro tem, various city council members, the city manager, I believe they're still downstairs, so they're not present in the Senate chambers. But I would like to share these words with you because I think they're important. The city of Fort Collins, and there was a governor's proclamation, the city of Fort Collins has received notice from the Secretary of Commerce that they have earned the prestigious Malcolm Baldrige Award. This national recognition is granted to businesses, nonprofit organizations, and governments who demonstrate a commitment to organizational excellence through systems and processes that promote continued improvement. The City of Fort Collins is one of 5 organizations to receive this presidential level award for 2017, and only the 3rd municipal organization to earn this recognition in the 30-year history of the program. They are at the Capitol today to meet the Governor Hickenlooper, as part of his recognition, and will be formally presented with the award at a national conference in Baltimore in April. Please join me in acknowledging this recognition for the City of Fort Collins.
Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm going to remind you today, and I'll probably remind you on Friday, that we have a legislative caucus on aging on Friday from 7:30 to 8:45 a.m., and it will be in House Committee Room 107. And this is an opportunity to talk about senior housing needs, what the forecast is for Colorado seniors, growing population, the gaps and opportunities that we have in Colorado. And then I also wanted to just take a moment and say, colleagues, there were 177 students that wanted to shadow legislators on the day that they are going to be here, and only 55 of the 100 offered to take one of those students to allow them to shadow them. So I would really encourage you, this is an opportunity to have our youth come in, shadow one of you, see what you do on a daily basis, see how we operate within our chambers, and get an experience to know how policy is made. And unfortunately, there are a lot of students that will go without being able to participate this year. And I had volunteered to take 2 students and was told that the policy was changed so we can only have 1. So please, in the future, open your office and allow these students to come in and shadow you for the day so that they have a learning opportunity. Thank you.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a simple announcement. Tomorrow is Colorado Technology Association's Day at the Capitol. They're lunches at 12 noon, and the location has been moved to the old Supreme Court chambers. Please join the Colorado Technology Association tomorrow at noon. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Members, we've been very lenient today, and we're excited about our guests in the chamber. But remember the rules under 31F on introductions in the chamber, in the Senate chamber. We ask you to just keep that in mind. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn until 9 a.m. Wednesday, February 21st.
Motion before us is to adjourn until 9 o'clock Wednesday. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. We stand adjourned.